Hello everybody, welcome back to the Music Gauntlet channel. I hope you all are having a wonderful day so far, and today I'm going to be having another episode of the Gauntlet Roundup. For anybody that doesn't know, in these videos I go over albums that I wasn't able to get around to in these past few weeks. Whether it be projects that I don't think I could have made a full video out of, or whether it be projects that I just didn't get around to until this past week. In any case, I am going to be going over each and every one of these projects, and there is a twist to these videos. Of course, I am going to be ranking them in the tiers of good, decent, and not so good. But there are a lot of albums on my plate that I want to get around to talking about in this video, so let's waste no more time and get straight into it. Starting off with two deluxe versions of already released projects that I want to go over real quick. The first of which that I want to talk about is the deluxe version of Limbo by Amine. Spanning 7 songs and attaching it right to the front of this album. All these songs I thought were pretty good, though some I did like more than others. Every song sounded very Amine-esque, whether you take that as a good thing or a bad thing, but each is good in its own way. I think this further proves the fact that Amine sounds like he's experimenting more with the kind of production that he's rapping over. Not one of these beats that sounds like another one that even appears on the grand total of this project, and he sounds like he's going at each track with a different approach, which I do enjoy hearing. However, they definitely all do have the B-sides feel. Like, none of these songs I would have replaced with any other song in the normal version of the album, hold for maybe Chicken with Tusi and Talk with Saba. Also, that beat on the track Zack and Cody is nasty. It sounds so awesome. For anybody that's already an Amine fan, I would say definitely check these songs out. You're going to love them, but anybody that's a casual listener, I would still say give them a shot because they sound like Amine is showing some growth just in some versatility aspects. But if you're not a fan of the way Amine makes music, then I would say just go ahead and skip these. The next deluxe project I wanted to talk about actually came out a little bit ago in September. I just didn't check it out until now, that being Lil Wayne's The Carter 5 Deluxe. I had already heard the singles In This House with Gucci Mane and the remix of What About Me with Post Malone, so I think those being heard already and me already hearing Carter 5, I just kind of let it slip under my radar. But No Ceilings 3 got me in the Lil Wayne mood, and I remembered, oh, I have a batch of songs I haven't heard by him yet. And I was sleeping on these tracks. I mean, not all of them are fantastic, but the first 3, Life of Mr. Carter, Holy, and More to the Story with Raekwon, those are all great songs, like some of my favorite Lil Wayne songs. The amount of detail he gets into on Holy is honestly a little mind-blowing. I was listening to it wondering when the song was going to end, and it just didn't. I'm not gonna spoil the structure for anybody that hasn't heard the song yet, don't worry. Even the songs on here that I wasn't the most fond of, I could still appreciate that they were going for a bit of a left field concept and incorporating production that was not exactly right up Lil Wayne's alley, but a little out there. But it still doesn't make songs like F Him Good when he's like talking from the female perspective about women debating having sex with him or not, which it gets to the point where it's just kind of wasting your time. Oh, and I did say first 3 songs, but I gotta include Scotty in that as well because that song is just fantastic. It gives you shivers hearing Lil Wayne talk about how he wasn't loved when he was younger properly and talking about how he's just a straight up fucking monster and not in the good way. And if there's one thing we know about Lil Wayne, he constantly makes sex references and punchlines in his lyrics, but here he's explaining how he lives the kind of lifestyle he does due to his upbringing. Maybe he himself isn't the happiest with the way he treated a woman in the past, but that's just who he is. But I would definitely recommend these songs if you haven't heard them already. I know, like I said, they've been out for a while, so you probably did hear them already, and if you're going to listen to them, I wouldn't listen to it in one sitting because this makes now the whole Carter 5 in total span 33 songs. But if you're in a crunch for time, I would definitely recommend the first 4 tracks. Now moving on, let's get into our tiers, starting with the good tier. Kicking off our good tier, yet again I only have one album in here, which is not the way I planned this to go, it's just the way the cards fell. And that is going to have to be Kali Uchis with her album
Sin miedo del amor y otros demonios,
aka Without Fear of Love and Other Demons. The Colombian-American R&B artist is finally back with an album after releasing one in 2018 with Isolation. Despite releasing an EP just earlier this year with To Feel Alive, it appears she has decided to strike while the iron is hot and while her name is still fresh in people's minds. And oh yeah, it's entirely in Spanish. That factor alone made me skeptical going into this project, not that I would not be enjoying the music I'd be hearing, but would I be able to understand and truly appreciate the art that I was listening to. But Kali ended up making the album sound so lush and enticing and gorgeous that it doesn't matter if you understand the Spanish language or not, you're still gonna be soothed by this album. I started to translate the lyrics to understand the album more, and they do play a role in liking some of these songs, but it's not large enough where, oh, you're gonna like the song way more if you understand the lyrics. It really doesn't matter. She keeps the lyrics extremely simple as to make the music itself more enjoyable than what she's actually saying, because she could really say anything and she's gonna sweep you off your feet. Oh, that opening song, the way she makes it a cover, her vocals are so entrancing. It's one one thing to make a record entirely in one language, but then it's another to embody that culture of that language. Everything down to the cadence and the atmosphere that she sets up with these really lush instrumentals. It plays out extremely well and makes a song like the one with Party Next Door actually sound a lot more alive due to Party's lackluster performance. And some of the notes she hits on this project are really breathtaking. The only tracks that I didn't care for as much were the more club-oriented ones in the back end. Other than the Rico Nasty song, it felt a little bit out of pocket not being so smooth, but even then I'm sure if I had a couple tequila shots in me and I was hearing these songs at a bar, then I'd probably go pretty crazy listening to them. Great Kelly Uchis project. I'm glad for her second album she didn't shy away from trying something a little bit different. She did what she felt her heart wanted to do, and in trusting her gut, she came out with a really great project. If you're a Kelly Uchis fan but you were turned off by the fact that this is in a different language, I would say still give it a shot. It really does not matter. The music is so angelic that it surpasses the fact that you're not understanding fully what the lyrics mean. And before I get too swept up talking about this project, I'm going to have to move on to our decent category. Starting off with Lil Uzi Vert and Future with their project Pluto and Baby Pluto. I remember the exact week this came out. It was the same week as A$AP Rock, and I had the option to review this album as soon as I got back from what I was doing because I had just listened to the album. It was fresh in my mind, and as soon as I went to review it, I realized I can't really say much about it. My thoughts on it pretty much boils down to, yeah, they have good chemistry, but that's about it. They show that they're able to work off each other pretty well, specifically the track Marnie and Me. I like how they're talking about pushing a button and something happens almost immediately. I really love hearing and appreciate rappers who go back and forth with another rapper and try and top that rapper while also rhyming with what they said. It got to the point where there were some interesting beat choices on the project. Either Uzi or Future was popping off on one of the tracks or at least doing something a little bit different. But my god, does this project get tedious by the snap of Thanos' fingers. Lil Uzi Vert recycles bars I've heard him spit before, Future recycles bars I've heard him spit before, and overall they just made this project way longer than it has to be. For two rappers that are known more so for their vibes than their actual lyrical content, you should be aware of this and not fall trapped to making way too many songs on here to make it feel double the length. At no point was I hating listening to this, it was just very much a so-so project. Last thing I'll say is there is definitely a weaker link on this too. I won't say who though. Next up, we are going to be talking about 2 Chainz and his album So Help Me God. At first this project was a little weird to me because I thought, you know, 2 Chainz is known for having somewhat more elaborate rollouts, and this one was even pushed back a little bit, delayed. And coming fresh off the heels of Rapper Go to the League, I thought for sure he was going to stick to that level of quality. And lyrically he does. There are some great punchlines across this thing. His flow is still on point. 2 Chainz is doing his 2 Chainz things on this project, and it's not bad at all. And he has a line in here stating that despite this being his last album for Def Jam, he wasn't going to make it a half-assed project. And I believe him. You can hear that. You can hear that there was some effort and care put into the way this album came out. 2 Chainz is a good enough artist where he knows how to make a decent song pop, but that doesn't change the fact that at their core they are somewhat decent songs. Nothing beyond that. So with his album contract in mind, it makes sense that he came through with some of his most forgettable songs to date, that being Moneymaker, Quarantine Thick, somehow coming through with a dull track having Chief Keef and Uzi on it, but there are a fair amount of quality moments on this thing to spare it from being completely average. Gray Area is 2 Chainz rapping at his wittiest. Feel Away ends up actually sounding very pretty with Kanye West and Brent Faiyaz on it, and I love the 2 Chainz line when he talks about how he's fly, like on Mike Pence's head. And Kevin Gates on Ziploc. Kevin Gates holding it down. I've heard him on a couple features over this past year, and he's been really killing it, like low key. But overall, if you're a big 2 Chainz fan, then you are going to love this album, but again, for me, it was just an okay listen. There were some songs I really liked, other ones I was very passive towards. Not one of his best albums in my opinion, but hopefully this fills out his contractual obligation and the next project is even better. Next in our decent category, we are going to be talking about the latest album from St. John called While the World Was Burning. Can you imagine having Jid, Kanye West, and Lil Uzi Vert on your album and doing the least with them artistically? I'm just realizing Uzi is a reoccurring name tonight. I've heard of St. John for a little while now, ever since his song I Heard You Got You Lit Last Night, and I've been tuning in every time he's dropped a project or single since then, including Ghetto Lenny's love songs. And I've steady had the same problem with his music every time I hear it. And it's A, that he's not a good enough songwriter where these songs come off to be all that interesting. He does get personal looking at the first 2 tracks in this project, but when he tries to diversify the content that he's covering, it ends up getting a little messy. And he knows how to harmonize well over a beat, but his vocals make it sound like he has way too much food in his mouth when he's trying to sing if you listen to it for too long. I was entertained by this project and it has some bops in the track listing, but he's not doing enough to stand out in the landscape that he's currently in. I can easily see another artist doing these kinds of songs but making them 10 times better. I'm also not the biggest fan of his cocky arrogance either.
Look, watch this.
Okay.
I love me. Now you say it. To me though.
I love me.
No, to me.
That's it, but it wasn't that.
And did we really have to put Roses on here twice? Like, one remix is fine, the Future remix was fine, but did you have to put both of them on here? Really? Just really wasting our time, huh? Overall, I don't mind this project. It was entertaining through its entire runtime, and I never had an issue with any of these songs so much where it made me hate it outright. I just think he needs a tweak in sound to make him stand out even more. Moving on from there, we are going to be talking about the latest LP from Jeezy called The Recession 2. Everyone's been saying it, and yes, I can confirm it, Jeezy sounds really refined on this project. His last few outputs have been hit or miss, but this one he really sounds like he's just re-energized and ready to rap about the stuff that he cares about again. He sounds comfortable being in the position where he's now an older artist of the genre that he inhabits, and refocusing that energy on topics that really do matter, like the opening track Oh Lord, and Stimulus Check, and Praying Right. It shows not only growth but maturity as an artist of Jeezy's stature, as he's comfortable enough to go outside his comfort zone, like on the track The Glory with Neo that sounds like it's designed to get you up out of your seat. Just a good album overall. I was expecting to like it, but not to the extent that I do like it. Again, it doesn't do so much where I think it's a fantastic project, but it's definitely one that I was able to listen to and appreciate for what it was. I haven't liked a project as much as I like this project here since Seen It All, so I'm glad to see he's able to deliver that level of quality still. Definitely check it out if you're a Jeezy fan or just a rap fan in general. I think you'll still get a kick out of this. Next, in our decent category, we are going to talk about the latest album from Grandson called Death of an Optimist. Jordan Benjamin's solo alternative rock act is finally here for its debut studio project. I came across this act, I think about a year ago when I heard his song Stick Up, which I really enjoyed. After A Modern Tragedy Volume 1 and Volume 2 both being released as EPs, we finally had this album, which I enjoy for the most part. Mostly I like the framing of it, and by that I mean thematically, the album is about losing your optimism at a younger age, him coming up as an artist. He had a lot more optimistic views of the world, but now seeing how it operates and the sleazy nature of it and seeing it crumble, especially in 2020, it's a lot more eye-opening. He gets into topics that drive him the most mad, and I also appreciate the production on this as well. It's not just sticking to a rock sound as much as it is incorporating some hip-hop elements. There were some EDM moments on here, specifically the track We Did It, which actually pans out really well. But the biggest issue I have with this project is he sounds like he's trying to rip off 21 Pilots a lot on here. If you look at artists like Action Bronson and Ghostface Killah, yeah, they do sound alike, but they can't really help that. It sounds like Grandson, though, here is going out of his way to copy the whole cadence, flow, the way he lingers on certain words. It reminds you exactly of Tyler Joseph. Grandson here is just trying to paint it in a different musical setting, so it sonically is different, but vocally is pretty much on point. But that drawback doesn't make the project unlistenable. It still has its own groove, its own sound. Grandson even comes through with some good vivid imagery at times as well. So overall, a good project. I enjoyed listening to it. It was nice and short too, but once Benjamin finds his own cadence on the mic, I think he can come through with a project even better than this. Moving on from there, we are going to talk about the latest album from Juicy J called The Hustle Continues. Have you heard a Juicy J album before? Oh, you have? Then you know what this album sounds like already. I can really just sum this album up by saying if you're already a fan of Juicy J, then you're gonna like this project. He has some interesting beat choices, he has some good punchlines here and there, but it's Juicy J at the end of the day. He's not doing anything too experimental, he's not going too far outside of his comfort zone, he's just making bangers with more than capable rappers. And can I just say, why are we putting Logic on Sexy Club hits? Like, he sounds so out of pocket. Granted, it wasn't as bad as some other singles, but even then, he just sounds so awkward over those kinds of songs. You could have picked any artist on the world and you picked Logic for that track. And you also have 1985 on there, the more superior track. Why don't you just leave that one on there and leave the other one off? So yeah, you'll find a few bangers scattered across this thing, but I don't want to sit there and just go a little brain numb hearing the same style of music over and over again. So decent project, it has some good songs scattered throughout it, but I'm not really going to come back to it in full anytime soon. Next, in our decent tier, I'm going to be talking about the latest mixtape, actually, from Lil Wayne called No Ceilings 3. This kind of goes hand in hand with the deluxe version I was talking about at the beginning of this video. It's nice to see Lil Wayne is refocused again and finally really caring about his art and effort. I'm pretty sure everyone remembers that time span of like 2013 to 2016 when Lil Wayne constantly made sex references and sex punchlines in his music. And sure, we got some somewhat humorous moments out of it. I mean, I'm Not a Human Being 2 is one of my favorite projects by him simply because it's so laugh out loud funny and not necessarily intentionally. But I'm glad to see ever since the Carter 5, he's been refocusing. He's been focusing a lot more on his content and the way he delivers his lyrics. It just sounds like he cares a lot about his legacy now. So now we can look back on that and just realize it was just a phase and he's no longer making 20 bars about in one single song. And yeah, No Ceilings 3 is exactly that. It's Lil Wayne doing a bunch of lyrical gymnastics to prove that he's still a more than capable rapper, and he still enjoys picking songs that he likes the beat of and rapping over them that are other people's beats. I remember No Ceilings 2 not being very good due to it being just lathered in auto-tune, so I'm glad he stuck to his guns here, mercilessly just destroying songs all over this thing. I think my favorite has to be Lamar, the way he samples Jay-Z's Takeover and just rips the track to shreds with his rhyme scheme, but I still enjoyed when he was just giving us some laid-back punchlines on the track BB King Freestyle, and the way way he covered Pop Smoke's Dior was really menacing. I enjoyed this project. I think he did each song tastefully. There is some auto-tune packed in the end and some songs where it sounds like he's kind of phoning it in, so it's not in my highest of tiers here. But in any case, it's great to hear Lil Wayne destroying these tracks again with some great lyrics. If he is going to release I'm Not a Human Being 3, which was hinted at on this project, then I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. Next, we're going to talk about the latest album from Miley Cyrus called Plastic Hearts. God, I need some water. Ooh. Why does every album of hers feel like an episode of a show? Like, oh, let's see what genre Miley inhabits this week. I guess I gotta give her credit for that. Like, she's never stuck with one sound. She's always experimenting with new things she can do with her music and not confining herself to one style of music. I can appreciate that. And now whether that has come with the best of results, that can be argued. Plastic Hearts finds Miley Cyrus investing herself into the genre of pop rock, mostly found in the 80s. But the genre's revitalization, it really isn't anything too amazing due to the fact that we've heard it happen this year. I mean, for reference track, we have Blinding Lights by The Weeknd. It's a lot like people hopping on dancehall production after Drake made it popular with Views. But on Plastic Hearts, I'd say Miley does it pretty tastefully and actually comes through with some of my favorite songs that she's ever released. A hindrance to Miley's career has always been her lyrics, especially when she was trying to put on a hip-hop coat and she just did not have the lyrics to back it up whatsoever.
I be in the club, standing on the couch, in the wolf braids, like it's my house.
But with this more grungier, in-your-face pop music, her lyrics fit pretty well. That, on top of having great vocal performances and paying attention to song structure, makes this project come out pretty good. The Billy Idol-assisted Night Crawling ends up being one of my favorites on here due to an aggressive guitar performance during the hook that really emphasizes the point. Idol gives a really chilling performance on the track too, which I look forward to every time I hear it. Bad Karma also was a standout in the track listing due to the very tribal-esque production and the way that Miley Cyrus is delivering her lines like it's slam poetry. My biggest gripe with the record is that she's not sticking to the sound throughout the entire thing. It actually starts out kind of veering away from making this 80s pop music, and she's really good at doing so and made the whole project centered around that idea, so I don't know why she didn't make the whole project a true and blue 80s rock album. These straying away moments lead to the lesser moments in the project, and her cover of Zombie by the Cranberries, it's not all that great. She does not have the range to cover that song properly, but I still got a lot more enjoyment out of this project than I thought I would, considering it is Miley Cyrus we're talking about. Considering the fact that she usually goes for a different angle on every project, it's not likely she'll do this kind of sound again, but if she ever does, then I would like to see her do it just to her fullest extent and full capabilities instead of just not doing it all the way like she did here. A pretty good project, especially for Miley standards, and I'll keep an eye out for what she releases in the future. I'm a little interested. And finally, for our decent category, we are going to be talking about the latest compilation LP from DJ Scheme called Family. This almost did not make the video. I did not see anything on social media, no notifications about it. I saw nothing about it, so I was not aware that it even dropped, even though I had heard the Soda and How You Feel freestyle singles. And man, I'm glad I did hear it in time because this project is just a whole lot of fun. Critically, I'd say the album has its best songs packed in the beginning and kind of runs out of steam later on in the project. But even then, these songs aren't meant to be looked at from an album perspective as much as they are to pick out your favorite songs from here and just enjoy them. But no matter what track we're talking about, you can tell that DJ Scheme cares about each and every one of these. As evident from the closing track of him just talking, you can tell this project meant a lot to him, and these people that he's putting on this project aren't just artists he's working with, but artists that he feels he can call his family and he feels really close with. A few of these artists also made an appearance on the Internet Money compilation tape Before the Storm that dropped a couple months ago, and I only say that because in that video I made the argument that it wasn't as well put together as a Dreamville compilation, but even on a lesser scale, like on this DJ Scheme album, it still feels a lot more organic and natural than it did on that project. Man, I'm a big fan of Ski Mask the Slump God, and hearing him, because we haven't gotten a project from him in a while, only 2 singles in the past year, so hearing multiple tracks by him on here, even though some we've already heard before, damn, Thor's Hammer, Eater, oh my god, I love Dude Ski. Where's the album, buddy? It's not just limited to him though. I mean, Lil Yachty comes through with some of the best verses I've heard him spit, Joey Badass is on point, Zilla Kami is on point, and Snot delivers a pretty menacing verse. I enjoyed that with the beat work as well. Obviously, when it comes to The Holiday and Lil Keat, I'm not the biggest fan of the way they sound, but all things considered, they're not my favorite tracks on here, but they're not terrible by any means. And I just gotta give it to DJ Scheme for caring about the flow of this project. You can really tell that some effort and love was put into making this. A good effort and compilation overall. I have some hard bangers I can go back to from this thing. Thank you for that, DJ Scheme. I'm gonna keep an eye out for what he releases, but for now, we got some hella good music to enjoy. Now we can finally move on to our last tier, and that is the not so good. In our not so good category, we only have one album, thankfully for the sake of time. I know we're going pretty long here, and that album is Smashing Pumpkins with their album CYR or Sire, I don't know, and I don't really care. I would like anybody that is currently writing their hate comments and have heavy nostalgia for the band to just take a second and realize that I don't hate this project or think it's awful. It makes its way into this category, however, by having the offense of being painfully boring. I had to stop listening to this album the first time I was listening to it due to the fact that it was later at night, so I was already kind of tired, but I was dozing off listening to it, and I had to say, you know, I can't do this now. I gotta wait until I have more energy. Now, granted, you could do a lot worse with the band reforming in the mid-2000s. I was fine with them going in a more synth-pop direction. I mean, that's fine to experiment with your sound, and maybe they could have made something great out of it. However, when you're doing it for an hour and 12 minutes, and very evidently a lot of these sound like demos, no. But if you're gonna pivot in a more synth-pop direction, then why are you making it like music we've heard in this genre done time and time again? They run into the same wall that Arcade Fire was running into with their album Reflector, where they're just taking these song ideas and stretching them out way too long. And you can make long songs and make them good, but they're not doing anything interesting for this whole runtime. There are times and portions of songs where I'm sitting there like, God, can this just be over? I'm assuming this idea sprouted from The Weeknd being such a big thing and Dua Lipa being such a big thing in 2020, but I'm not gonna listen to an album that's putting a skin of a genre on and just doing it to its bare minimum. Why, when we have records that have come out just this year that are far superior? For a band that was mostly known for its guitar-driven music to shift so suddenly into this kind of lane and just make it the opus that it is, whew, I mean, you're taking a big risk, and that did not work in their favor here. I'm probably just gonna go back and listen to older Smashing Pumpkin records when they weren't trying to pass off subpar material as some kind of majestic ride. And that is all I got for you guys. That is finally the end of our roundup. Oh, I know that was a lot, trust me, I was the one recording it, I know that was a lot. But thank you for making it all the way into the end. If you made it all the way into the end, you know I truly appreciate that. I could say with confidence this is probably going to be my last roundup until 2021, as from here on out I'm going to be focusing on my year-end list, so keep an eye out for those. I'm for sure going to be covering the next Kid Cudi release, Man on the Moon 3, that is dropping very soon. And I was debating doing the debut from Jack Harlow covering it, and I'll just have to play it by ear, see how much time I have. In any case, thank you again for watching all the way into the end, and every album I talked about in this video is just my opinion on these albums, so let me know your opinion in the comments section, or you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter, and we can talk about it there. Links in the description. If you want to leave a like or subscribe, you know I would love that, and I'll see you in the next one.
Imagine this scene. The name of the album's Gish. The name of the album's Siamese Dream. The name of the album's Melancholy and Infinite Sadness. It was like...
I call it the bad pun game. It couldn't be any worse than the name of the band.